in mountain bike. So we wish them good luck, and it's going to be exciting to see other medals awarded today, including this very special fragment of the Eiffel Tower. As Tony Estanguet said on Friday during the opening ceremony, we really want to give the athletes the best of everything France has to offer. So finally, a word on the program of our Paris 2024 president today. This morning, Tony will be at the Château de Versailles for the equestrian event. This afternoon, he plans to attend the women's mountain bike at the Colline des Lancours, and he will then make a short appearance at the Club de France before heading to the Défense Arena for tonight's swimming finals. Thank you very much, and Marc, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anne. Pleasure to be here with you today. And yes, as you say, many historic firsts, many historic moments in these games already happened and happening, and one of them we're going to come to in a minute is full gender parity for the first time ever. So something really to be celebrated, and we'll talk about how we got there. I think it's for us, it's a big story. I hope it is for you. What we will do is what we normally do is we will do the presentation, take the questions on that, and then we'll go to all the other questions. Absolutely happy to take any questions, but then that allows our working guests like you, they need to get on, so we will allow them to go afterwards. Let me just give you very quickly some quick figures from our side. We carried out a survey, 15 territories globally, 88% approval rating for the opening ceremony, which is good. I'm surprised it wasn't 99.9%, but that's pretty good. 76% stated this was the most memorable Olympic Games opening ceremony ever. 85% said it inspired them to follow the Olympic Games for the rest of the 2 weeks. I've got some overnight broadcasting for some of you who want those figures. NBC Universal reports that Paris Olympics opening ceremony on NBC and Peacock is the most watched since 2012 with 28.6 million viewers, and that's up 60% compared to Tokyo 2020. You can get all these figures later from the media team. Through Friday, 26th of July, streaming consumption on NBC Universal platforms is up 6 times from Tokyo, 6 times as much. Live opening, give you a different country, different region. Live opening ceremony coverage on ARD, the German broadcaster, received an average audience of 10.1 million viewers, making it the most watched Olympic broadcast in the market in 20 years. And a couple of quick digital facts and figures for you. Social media handles, Olympic social media handles, their best day ever yesterday. 700 million engagements, primarily on Instagram, TikTok, and Douyin. Yesterday was also the best day for all Olympic platforms ever, and it wasn't even, need hardly remind you, the opening day. It was the first day of sport, so that's pretty good. Just to tell you also, for those that want to know, our president will be at archery this afternoon and swimming this evening. So, quickly, as I said, we're going to do a short presentation on 50-50 on the field of play and various other bits and pieces. I have with me on my left here Marie Salois, who's director in charge of the IOC, in charge of corporate and sustainable development. I have Yannis Exarchos, many of you will know, CEO of Olympic Broadcasting Services, OBS, and Marie Barzac, who is from Paris 24, Executive Director of Legacy and Impact. So I think we're going to start with a very short video. If we could play that, that would be great.
Self-belief, respect, and ambition, they belong to us all when we chase our dreams. The Olympic Games are one of the most powerful platforms for empowering women. And this summer, women will again inspire the world on the Olympic stage. Paris 2024 will be the first Olympic Games with full gender equality on the field of play. The journey has been long. Over the years, trailblazers have led the way, while the Olympic movement has been working hard to give female athletes the opportunities they deserve. creating the biggest gender-equal sporting event in history. Let's celebrate the moment, but not stop the journey.
Okay, so let's start by hearing from Marie Salois. Marie, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. We are really happy to be here with you this morning to talk about gender equality, and very proud to celebrate this historical milestone. Paris 2024, as you heard here, and probably many times since you arrived in Paris, will be the first Olympic Games with full gender parity on the field of play. And as a result, it is de facto the world's largest platform to promote gender equality in and through sport. It didn't happen by chance. It is a result of many efforts and a strategic direction that has been given by a strategic roadmap, Olympic Agenda, that was launched in 2015, which clearly positioned gender equality as a key priority on and off the field of play. And it is also the result of deliberate action from the IOC and the concerted effort of the entire Olympic movement, men and women, because gender equality is a team sport. So let's see at how we have done it. Gender equality has been mainstream throughout everything and at the heart of the Olympic Games. Starting with the opening ceremony, where you had very symbolic moments. When you look at the parade of the athletes on the Seine, you could probably see that 96% of the flag bearers, of the delegation had two flag bearers, a woman and a man. But you also had the two flag bearers of France, you know, Mélina Robert-Michon as well as Florent Manoudou, taking the oath together. And at the end, and you see that on the picture, Marie-Josée Pérec and Teddy Riner lighting together the cauldron. All these symbols are important because we know the reach of the opening ceremony. It continues with the field of play. The IOC has distributed for the first time an exact equal quota of places for women and men at the Olympic Games. We have recommended all NOC to include at least one woman and one man in all their delegations. 28 out of 32 sports are gender balanced, and more than half of the medal events are open to women. And it continues also with the competition schedule, because a lot of efforts have been made to balance the events throughout the 2 weeks of competition to provide visibility to women, and Yanis will talk about that more in a minute. But it goes beyond, you know, the athletes and their visibility. We have been working a lot with international federations for them to include also more women in their technical officials, you know, referee and judges. And we are proud to report that 5 of them, tennis, triathlon, canoeing, sailing, and field hockey, will reach parity here in Paris. It doesn't end there. We also need to work on how we get more women in coaching positions, when we know that they represented only 13% of the coaches in Tokyo. And here again, we put measures in place, including the WISH program, supported by Olympic Solidarity, that help equip women to coach at elite levels. And we are very happy to see 10 of these women coaching here in Paris. And it shows that we can deliver success. But we have to continue even in leadership position. And this is why in 2022, we introduced, as part of the basic principle of good governance, a request and a minimum target of 30% from both gender to be included in decision-making position. And we need to lead by example and be a role model. This is why, just a few days ago, in this building, a little bit further, we had the IOC session and new election took place and demonstrated once more the IOC commitment to lead by example and close the gender gap across leadership position. Just to give you a few figures, female IOC members now account for 42% of the membership, which is an increase from 21% 10 years ago. So we doubled. Women now account, or will account at the end of the Games, to be precise, to 46% of our executive board. And female representation in IOC Commission have reached full parity, 50%, from 20% 10 years ago. So you see, when you have really willingness at the top, when you put gender equality as a key priority, it is possible to make progress. But obviously, it's not enough. So we want today to celebrate the milestone, because parity took us 100 years, or actually over 100 years to achieve, but we should continue our effort and we shouldn't stop the journey. So we need actually to accelerate it. And that's what I wanted to share with you this morning.
Thank you very much, Marie. And Yanis, tell us about scheduling and portrayal and so on, guidelines.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Marie. I would like to share with you a few thoughts around the showcasing of sporting event and how we are trying to achieve their equality. And it's a subject that many of you know that I'm very passionate about. It's good enough to keep me awake after a number of sleepless days with the ceremony and everything. So I would like to share with you what the effort has been to try and match on the media front the achievement that we celebrate on the sporting front. So equal participation of women. This is not enough. It has not been enough for us. We wanted to make sure that the actual sports content was also reflecting this equality. You know, the schedules of sporting events have traditionally been biased towards highlighting men's events. You regularly have, you know, if in a sport you have women's competition, you had men's competition, almost always you had first women's competition, or you had it in the morning, and then you had men's competition. We have worked during these years together with our partners in the federations and our broadcasters in order to make the schedule, the program of competition of the Games of Paris as equal as possible. So you will see here interesting things. Traditionally, the last event is the men's marathon. Here, for the first time, the last event of the Games is going to be the women's marathon. Traditionally, in team sports, you have first women's finals and then men's finals. Here you will see very, very important sports like basketball and elsewhere where it will be the reverse. Traditionally, in sports, in strength and combat sports, you have women's competition in the morning and men's competition in the evening. Here, it's not by gender; it is by category. So this will be completely mixed. We also have the commitment of our broadcasters who have supported us in showcasing in exactly the same way. For example, we have been talking with our colleagues from NBC, obviously a very, very important partner. They have a full commitment of showcasing in their prime time, on equal measure, women's and men's competition. I think you can have a look at other major sport events and understand what a seismic change this is. But in order to achieve all that, for us also it has been very, very important to make sure that the teams also reflect as much as practically possible this gender equality. And we have to be very transparent between ourselves. I don't have any issue saying that our industry, sports media industry and sports broadcasting, is one of the weakest in this front. And we need to do things. And we have been doing some things on the front of OBS with the support of our broadcasters. We have been trying, first of all, starting with OBS itself. When we also started, we were a company of very specialized people with a lot of experience, and inevitably the balance was not good. When we started, the company was probably 80-20, which is the case in many, many companies, media companies still today. As we speak, OBS, in our permanent staff, we're 161 from 30 countries, 47% are women, 53% are men. And I believe that within the next year, this is going to be 50%. And we have more and more in senior positions. Almost half of my direct reports very soon will be women. This extends to other initiatives. For example, here in the Games, 2/3 of the broadcast venue managers of OBS, the people who run our operations in each venue, are women. 2/3 of them. The same happens with our broadcast operations center, which is our war room in the IBC, where we control the Games 24/7. 2/3 of them are women. There are specific specialties where there is a challenge, and those have mostly to do with core technical positions and camera operators. But it's very important that we also work on that front. We have taken a number of initiatives. For example, last November, we are organizing here in Paris a training session dedicated to women camera operators. We called it Framing the Future. We trained 70 young women camera operators. 25 of them work as we speak with us in the Games. We did our big training program with university students here in France. We have hired 1,300 of them working with us in junior professional positions in broadcasting. They're not volunteers, they're junior professionals, most of them doing their last year of studies. 57% of them are women. The new generation of media, sports media broadcasters in France is going to be slightly predominantly female. And that is a great thing. The third big area is obviously how do we portray in the way we tell the stories of the sports, which is hugely, hugely important and where a lot of unconscious bias still exists. Because it's not enough to make sure that the volume is there, it's also very important to make efforts in how you actually showcase. And there I still see, unfortunately, in some events that they are still being filmed in a way that you can identify that there are stereotypes and sexist remains, even from the way some camera operators are framing differently men and women athletes. They're not there. Women athletes are not there because they're more attractive or sexy or whatever. They are there because they are elite athletes. They are there for their sporting performance. They should be showcased in the same way. Same way with commentators, you know, even using men as a reference in order to qualify how well a woman athlete is doing. You know, it's the absolutely wrong way. So with the leadership of this team of Marie and a number of specialists, we have worked in detail on what it would mean to showcase in an equal and fair way men and women athletes. And this is reflected in the already third version of the portrayal guidelines that we have published. Those are guidelines. We're not forcing anybody to use it. OBS and our people will be using it, our producers, our directors, our commentators. But we have invited also broadcasters to embrace the ideas that are contained there. And I think they were very happy. We made recently in Cortina in Italy, preparing for the next Games, a full presentation of that. And we had a very honest discussion. They saw a lot of new ideas. They brought ideas. And we believe that that the change is on track. So this element is important, and I believe that we should all collectively, as sports media, do an effort on that front. And last part has to do with really content volumes. On the Olympic platforms, Mark mentioned before that yesterday was the most successful day in the history of Olympic digital platforms, both on social and on our own platform, with incredible numbers. Well, more than 50% of the content that is contained on Olympics.com and the content that we publish on social, more than 50% is dedicated on women. I don't think that there are many sports platforms, and especially so big sports platforms as we have become, that have this balance. And this is an invitation, and we do it whilst having strong engagement. So I have a feeling that there's an opportunity actually out there for us to come into terms with the change that's happening in society, and media, we need to embrace it. Sorry that I speak a little bit more passionately and I'm a little bit more biased on the subject, but I think it's time for us to really follow the lead of society on that front. There's no reason any longer in the world why portrayal of women in sports is not absolutely equal as it is for men. Thank you very much for your attention and patience.
Thank you, Yanis. Thank you very much. Okay, let's hear a little bit from Marie Barzac about what Paris 24 is doing. So Marie, over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and good morning, everyone. The parity among athletes engaged Paris 2024 to be ambitious on gender equality, with two objectives. The first one is advancing the role of women in sport, and the second one is using sport as a tool to contribute to more gender equality between men and men in the society in general. So what have we done so far? First, we have emblematic measures has the first one is our logo. This is the face of a woman, Marianne, representative of the French Republic. Marianne is everywhere all around France and the world today, so it's a good showcasing of the woman power. Second thing, I think you had a picture just before. During the opening ceremony, there has some promotion of the emblematic woman, French woman, during the ceremony, and of course there was this parity at the really end with the barriers. The second type of action we launched was to be totally gender balanced in all our programs, in our actions. Like our staff is totally 50-50 gender balance, even for our director committee, but also our volunteer team, which is also 50-50, but also all the torch relayers. They are 10,000. I forgot to say that for the volunteers we were 45,000. And again, for the Marathon for All, which will count 40 participants, it will be also gender balance. But we also want to secure the games, and we are committed to partnership with non-profit sectors specialized in the fight against sexist, sexual, and discriminatory violence. We set up 4 kinds of actions. The first one was to raise awareness about the fight against sexist, sexual, and discriminatory violence. Difficult to say in French. This program is dedicated to our staff, but also for our volunteers. It provides tools to identify and to, of course, to identify the situation and to support victims. Second actions, we develop with the stakeholders a guide for Paris 2024 staff, but also volunteers and all entities involved in the delivery of the games. Thirdly, we create a reporting platform accessible to everyone to communicate on all competition sites, and we also provide dedicated prevention signage. We probably will see them on sport venues. And lastly, we also create an inclusive health charter dedicated to the medical staff. Fourth, actions in that domain to promote gender equality. As I said, we use sports as a tool to equality between men and women in the society. Everything begins at school, in the schoolyards, and that's why we promoted and implemented active design in the schoolyard in order to be sure that the occupation of the schoolyard is gender balanced between girls and boys, between 6 to 11. This project has been experimented by Paris 2024, and today it's implemented in a large scale because the government is supporting 1,500 schoolyards in the next year. We also created in 2020 an endowment fund in order to support all kind of initiative to promote social impact through sports. And we gave a priority to gender equality in sport. That's why 30% of our projects were about this objective. This endowment fund distributed 50 million euros. So as you can see, it's not just emblematic, it's something very concrete. For that, we supported projects that remove barriers to women's participation in sports, but also projects that enable women to access governance position in sports, which is quite important also. And also projects that help women to emancipate and to rebuild themselves through sports. To conclude, I would like to say that all those actions are already recognized by the governments through a new label, Terrain d'égalité. This label is dedicated to international sport events in France for events that are fully engaged in gender equality and women empowerment through sports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to open the Q&A on the subject of the day first, please. So only questions regarding the subject of the day. Yes, just one question. Can you just wait for the microphone? Thank you very much. And can you please state your name and media organization? Thank you.
Yeah, it's Robin Doolittle. I'm from the Globe and Mail in Canada. And apologies if I missed this, but did you say the actual count of women to men athletes? The number?
We had a percentage, I think.
No, athletes, we will have it at the end.
Yeah, we don't have. I don't think we have we don't have a number.
Women athletes.
No, we will have it at the end of the day.
What was the percentage then?
No, I gave you the percentage of the flag bearers. 96% of the delegations have a woman and a man.
I think I heard that you opened equal slots.
Yeah.
So do you actually know the breakdown of what showed up?
Not yet. Not till the end.
Yes.
But it's 50-50 quota places for men and women. So that's. But obviously, every competition has slightly different rules and qualifications and so on. So it will end up. It won't be exactly 50-50. It might be 49-51 or vice versa. That comes at the end.
Yeah, at the end. Exactly.
Till the end. Does that answer your question? Kind of. I mean, we have to wait for the people to compete and take part.
Yes, one question.
Thank you. Wakako Yuki from the Yomiuri Shimbun. One question each to Mali from the IOC and Yanis, please. Marie, I understand it was a difficult journey for the IOC. Tried to have this quota. Of course, international federations have different many different circumstances than national Olympic committees. They have different social situations. What was the difficulty you faced, and how did you try to overcome to secure the half and half? And Yanis, you have spoken many interesting, actually, touched upon many interesting topics. The traditional bias within even the Olympic program, how it is displayed or conducted, I presume, in my humble opinion, came down from the long Olympic history, even from Pierre de Coubertin era, when many actually competitions are men's only. And as you say, marathon at the very end of the competition was become traditional from halfway, and that was also one of the symbolic issue of that. How you call this seismic change? How by doing what you are doing, you would try to change the Olympic movement's future? And also, incidentally, minor thing, media. You are talking about media as gender representation, as well as how we report. Do we have any figure of media accreditation with a gender percentage? As well as, I understand Olympic Games report compared to other professional leagues and any domestics. We have stats that it is, for many media, quite nearing to men and women, because our report is toward the medal tally, how the successful athletes were, not exactly gender. But still, there are gap, you say. Where does this gap come from?
Yes, thank you for your first question. How difficult it was. It was difficult, and it will continue to be. But I have seen three changes since we launched Olympic Agenda in 2015. The first, gender equality has become an executive priority. Under the leadership of President Thomas Bach, it was clearly set as part of a strategic roadmap as a priority. And it means that everywhere we have explained that we cannot leave 50% of the world's population behind, especially we have to embrace the skill set of half of the world's population that is not properly represented. Second change I've seen is 10 years ago we are still trying to fix the woman. Now we are talking about fixing the system. And that makes a big change. And we do that with the cooperation of men, ally. And this is why we have been able to accelerate. And third, We have, in the past, it was just isolated initiatives. Now it has been mainstreamed. And you heard from Yanis, you heard from Marie. We have really been working on taking gender equality in everything we have been doing. And so it's no longer an isolated project. It's a consideration that is part of a decision-making process.
Dear Yuki, to your question, there is a history and there is a legacy, of course, but this reflects other times, as many other walks of life. Yes, the way sport developed. Actually, the way I would say that sport re-emerged in human history since the 18th century, much more 19th century, of course, the 20th century, they did reflect a little bit the realities of society at the times, and especially the realities of European societies at the times, because this is how we shouldn't forget that for many, many years, sports as we know them today, for whatever reasons, did not really exist. There was a gap from the ancient Greek, Roman world until the more modern time. So the re-emergence of sport reflected that, and it's evident that also was reflected in the first years of the Olympic movement. But this is not a kind of tradition that should be holding us back. I know that, I also admire a number of things in our tradition and in the views, and I think we're all inspired by the values of Olympism, but it's fundamental that we move on. But in order to move on, it's not a matter just of top-down decision, because you need to start developing from grassroots sports across many, many countries for women as well. That has still some social barriers. You have to have the structures there. The athletes here are 50-50. Coaches still are not. You have several different elements. You know, the disciplines, the way they present. We need to do the work across all these things. It has not finished. Of course, we celebrate today this huge achievement of participation, equal participation in terms of athletes, but the whole framework is not yet fully there, and it's definitely not across the world. Specifically for media, I don't have handy the number of accreditations. Probably our colleagues from the organizing committee can provide that. It would not be a surprise for me if there's still a significant imbalance there. But what I can tell you is that a few years ago, there was a report, a research that was done by the United Nations, I think, that on the level of reporting on women's sports, the total amount of content that was devoted around the world was less than 10%. This is, we're talking like 6 years ago. This is a glaring imbalance. It's incredible. In the Olympic Games, I'm sure that we will see a far, far more balanced situation. But this does not happen day in, day out. Have a look and remember just the last years, even in the most gender equal societies in the world, how much of women's sport is being devoted? How much does it dominate the public conversation? We're not there yet. The Olympics lead the way, but we're not there. It needs to become an ongoing concern for all of us.
Just to say on media figures, we will have them at the end, as I was saying to another colleague, but I think they will be generally not that good, and there's a lot of work to do still, as we all have a lot of work to do, but we can get those figures towards the end of the Games or at the end of the Games.
Yeah, there's one question, third row.
Hi, Tracy Holmes from the Australian Radio Network and the Sports Ambassador podcast. I don't mean to complicate the process, but I'm just wondering if there is any particular focus on trying to get all of these things right from the IOC's perspective, whether you're looking at not just replacing white men with white women, but also trying to get that mix right, given that the International Olympics is very much about every country, every place, and we do see that on the field of play, but I wonder how that is translating into the halls of power, the committees, etc., etc. Thank you.
Great subject. I can respond to you a little bit on our side. For OBS, for our permanent staff, we have staff from 30 countries coming from all continents. Here in the Games, we have 8,300 people coming from 110 countries. This is a truly Olympic broadcast operation. It's very diverse. And also we make it a case to keep us legacy people that come from previous host nations, from previous countries. We have a lot of people from Asia, a lot of people from Latin America, a lot of people from Africa working with us. And we will continue working. Actually, I think that it's one of the things that makes the way we work so special and why people love working in this environment. It's a unique opportunity to meet colleagues from all over the world.
And maybe from the IOC perspective, as you know, I mean, we have a very diverse membership. I don't have all the figures on top of my head. But what I know is, as part of the IOC administration, we have roughly double the number of nationality also in the same period I was mentioning, which is since the launch of our agenda. So, which shows that we also put emphasis on diversity, including in the recruitment process, where it's a clear criteria.
Hi, Rodrigo Matos from UOL from Brazil. First, a question for Yanis. You said women are not supposed to be there because they are attractive and because they are great athletes. It's the first time that a broadcast thinks about that, and it would mean like not showing parts of the body of a woman with no connection with the competition. Is that it? And also to Mark, as it is a connected question, because of the opening, there was a scene that promote diversity in the opening ceremony, and there is a lot of, let's say, cultural war discussions, political discussions because of that. So what is the view of the IOC? Because, you know, criticized by some Catholic institution and things like that. Thanks.
If I can take the first question, for us, no, definitely it's not the first time. I mean, trying to portray in the image creation in a similar way has been one of our directives that has been there for as long as I remember, probably 20 years. And it has some very, very specific rules that even the size of shots that we're making, because you can tell that even today there exists, you know, camera operators in some events and directors in some events will go with a very, very tight shot in the face of a woman, but they wouldn't do the same for a man. They would go into reactions of the spectators in the venues, and the selection will be, you can tell that there's an unconscious bias about who do they show when they're women and who do they show when they're men, that they reflect this very traditionalist stereotype. So for all these things ourselves, we had guidelines way before those guidelines. And I think little by little major broadcasters also follow similar guidelines. But it's important that we're conscious about it precisely because the problem is usually unconscious. It's not like people do it or professionals do it, you know, because they want to they are used to be doing that. It's a habit. We need to get rid of the habit.
I'll take the second question. Yesterday, Thomas Joly was here and he had the opportunity to answer this question. And clearly, there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. On the contrary, I think that Thomas Joly really tried to really intend to celebrate community tolerance. That was his word yesterday. And looking at the result of the polls that we shared, we believe that this ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we are, of course, really, really sorry.
Thank you. I have two questions, one related to the gender parity subject. One is not, so I think can I raise it all at once? My first question is that it's great to hear that Paris Olympics 2024 has reached gender parity. And in fact, we have a saying in China called women can raise half of the sky. And for Team China, we raised even more than half of the sky. We have 136 male athletes, and we have 269 female athletes. So what do you think of this achievements in terms of Team China? And what are your expectations for the performance of Team China, especially female athletes? Are there specific female athletes that that is your favorite? And my second question is related to the fact that the names of Chinese swimmers involved in the contamination case were leaked by certain media organizations. This has caused concerns of athletes and also disputes on Chinese social media. Is it ethical or legal for them to do so, especially after WADA has made investigation and released the result? Does the IOC have a comment on this? Thank you.
Thank you. For your first question, I think it's a good demonstration that when you create an equal playing field for all, women as well as men can qualify. And sometimes it will be this way, sometimes the other way, but you will get, yes, the possibility for women to get the opportunities. So we welcome this.
I think let me take the second question about the WADA case. I think we've expressed ourselves already in terms of the fact that we have full confidence in WADA, and there was an interim report which has indicated, as far as we can read from the report, that there's no wrongdoing. They've also said that the final report, they said the final report will lead to that direction. So I think that, from our side, is pretty clear. On people expressing their view about that, that's not a job for us. I think people, as long as they remain within the guidelines, legally and whatever, everyone is entitled to express a view. So I don't think that's up to the IOC to comment on people's freedom of expression.
Hi, Rob Harris from Sky News. On the topic of the day, on gender equality, one of the biggest sports obviously is football, but the women's event has 12 teams, the men's event has 16 teams. Does that mean this is a guarantee today that by the next Olympics it will have the same number of teams? And more generally, probably one to Yannis on women's rights. Are there OBS orders to highlight or not show any protests in venues? Because obviously we've seen booing today against the Dutch volleyball player Steven van der Velde, who is a convicted rapist. So is that part of promoting women's rights by showing those protests? And just to mark, concerns about the water quality have been raised again today with the triathlon being called off the training.
Maybe I take two, and water quality. I think on the first one, and Marie can chip in if she wants to, but I mean, clearly it's an issue for FIFA. We've made it very clear where we want to go, and we hope to get there. Yeah.
There is Sorry. Yes, you're right. As I mentioned, 28 out of 32 sports are fully gender balanced, and football is still, one of the sports where we have still to work, and the direction is set. And as we said, we are on a journey, and we'll need to continue the work.
And then on the case of the Dutch volleyball player, I've already expressed our view, I think 3 times now in press conferences. I haven't got a great deal to add to that, but it's clearly the Dutch National Olympic Committee who makes the original choice, who chooses the player. They have, as you know, given a very long statement about about safeguarding, what extra safeguarding measures are in place. As I say, I believe the athlete himself is not staying in the village. Not to excuse it in any way, but this took place, I think, 10 years ago, and I think, as a general rule, I think we need to allow for the possibility of rehabilitation. But I would stress once again that this is first and foremost a decision for the Dutch NOC to make, and they've made that decision. They've made very clear the safeguarding measures, very extensive safeguarding measures that have been taken for this to carry on.
And on your third question, a joint decision has been taken this morning with the World Triathlon to cancel the swim leg of the familiarization. The running and bike will go ahead as planned. So this is linked to the rain that has fallen in Paris on the 26th and 27th. But we are still very confident that with the weather forecast for the next 48 hours, the water quality will improve, and thanks to all the work that has been undertaken by our public stakeholders. We saw the water quality of the River Seine that has improved significantly over the next week, so we are still very confident. There was a question over there.
If I may, I'm sorry, if I may add a little bit specifically about the coverage of OBS, just to be sure. Our mandate is to focus on competition and to do this coverage following the Olympic principles and values. That means that this is a coverage which is completely unbiased, and also at the same time it doesn't promote any political, religious or other ideas. Our job is to be covering the competition. That means that we do not start focusing or telling other stories. That being said, if anything like that comes into the competition itself, we do not stay away. You know, in Tokyo, you had some athletes at some point taking the knee. They were on the field of play. We didn't start showing the sky. We showed what was there. Also, that being said, we need to remind ourselves that the Olympic Games is the most media-present event in the world, not just sporting event. We have here 18,000 broadcasters and 6,000 media. The number of cameras and the capacity to have access and tell stories in the venues is unlike anything else in the world. So, you know, and everybody obviously is free to report and tell the stories that they want to select to tell from the venues.
So you have one question here and then in the center.
Thank you. I understood the last questions in a way that we now move to the more general questions. So, Mark, allow me 2 questions to you. First questions, you have been asked yesterday about the football case around Canada's football team. Yesterday evening, the decision has been confirmed or made and confirmed. And additionally, some days ago, the analyst was given a suspended 8-month prison sentence even. So what are your thoughts? Yesterday you referred that's a case of the FIFA, but nevertheless the FIFA made a decision and the court made a decision. What are your thoughts on these decisions? Are they appropriate? And the second question, due to the statistics of the ITA, 12% of the participants have not been tested in the pre-games period, and 13% of the athletes have been tested less than recommended. And there are big gaps between different kind of sports and big gaps between different nations. What are your thoughts about that such a huge number of participants had not been tested in the pre-games period?
I think what I would do is refer you, I'm sure you saw it, to the report by ITA and WADA, particularly by ITA in the opening, in the session, which was, I think, pretty impressive, and in terms of previous games is very impressive, and the process and the progress that we have made is pretty amazing. Are we there yet? No. Will we catch all dopers? Unfortunately, people will always cheat, so I don't think we're ever going to see a games where there is no cheating. Cheating takes place in all kinds of ways. So we do our best. We continue, as you know, we actually set up the ITA to do more targeted testing by individual athletes, by particular teams, by particular sports that are at risk. So that work continues. Do we want to get to 100%? Do we want to get to more testing? We can always do more. There's no doubt about that. Are we doing a good job? I think we're doing a very good job. We need to do more. We need to improve. Like in all our lives, are we doing 100%? Are you doing 100%? Probably not. Or maybe in your case you are. But I think we have to support the process. It's improving all the time, and we are catching the cheaters. So that's as it should be. As for the COC and FIFA, I think I have to say, you would expect me to say this is a matter between COC and FIFA. You saw the ruling yesterday and the punishments that have been handed out. I fully expect, or I think it's quite likely that will go to CAS, so I wouldn't really want to say much more. You can judge for yourself, as I can, whether you think those punishments are appropriate or not.
Morning, Carlos Groman from Reuters. Just to follow up on the opening ceremony, has there been any blocking of the videos from the organizers' side? There've been some reports on blocking of the parts of the opening ceremony. And a question for Yannis: we see that the opening ceremony, the NBC figures are up from 16 million they were in Tokyo to 28 million now. Obviously, the 3-game in Asia and the difference in time zone does something, but we also see that it's up from 20 million from Rio. Where do you attribute that rise? Thank you.
I think that Yannis can answer both questions.
Well, about the question of where does it come from, it was a ceremony like no other, and those are games like no other. I think that our hosts, it's easy for me to say, and we should all be grateful and thankful, they have put together a vision for these games, which is unprecedented. It's an incredible vision for the games. We're trying to showcase that in the best possible way in broadcasting. Broadcasters are excited about Paris. You know, that's the reality. It's not just the USA, all European countries, all the broadcasters that I talk every day. This is what they feel. All the things that Paris has done have been very, very important in showcasing not just Paris, but the Olympic Games in the best possible way. And I think that this is what we see, the reflection of the world being excited with the games that Paris and France are putting together. Allow me to say personally, because I see the games from the inside, that the thing we should all be grateful is that Paris has stayed the course. They defined a vision many years ago, a very clear vision, and despite the challenges, financial, the world situation, they have kept the course on everything that makes these games very different. And we have tried to do the same in broadcasting, to make these games very, very special. And I think we start seeing the results. This is the reality of the matter. About images or deleting images, I'm not sure what.
I think it was a subject of geolocalization, something like that.
Geo-blocking.
Geo-blocking of content.
Hi, Adam Plowright from AFP News Agency. Is a question for Anne and a question for Mark. And this morning there was an incident in the Puerto Rico South Sudan basketball game at which the wrong national anthem was played for South Sudan. Do you have any explanation for that or comment? And Mark, a question just on the opening ceremony. The Palestinian flag carrier Wissam Abu Sal wore a shirt during the ceremony showing planes dropping missiles and children playing sport, and I was just wondering if that was something that the IOC had looked into as a possible breach of the Olympic Charter, and whether there are any conclusions on that. Thank you.
On your first question, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have this information, but if it was the case, of course, we would apologize for the mistake.
Yeah, on the second one, I mean, we are in constant touch with all of the National Olympic Committees concerned. So we speak on a regular basis to both the Palestinian and the Israeli NOC. And obviously our job is to try to bring people together to get them all to participate. As far as I know, I don't think this has been looked into as a specific case, no.
Jerome Pugmire, Associated Press. A couple of questions. One question about the equality to Marie and one for Mark. You said earlier, it was an interesting point, that 50% of athletes, you're getting close to 50% on athletes, but coaches are not. This is a similar problem in other sports. Football, for example, in football, there are hardly any black coaches, hardly any women coaches on men's teams. Do you think that's the biggest stumbling block now, coaches? And question for Mark, we've spoken about Canada and the drone scandal, but the wider question is misuse of technology. Everyone sort of worships technology to a great extent, but there's a lot of misuse of technology. Is that a concern?
So regarding coaching, yes, there are many hurdles still for women to access to these roles. Some of them are, for instance, the necessity to travel a lot. And often still in society, you know, women take care of the kids and there is no support system for them to, you know, take care of their kids and coach. So this is something that a lot of federations, you know, mention. Sometimes also it's because it's difficult to just know the position are open because it's more word of mouth than some formal process. So these are typical two main hurdles that are mentioned very often. And then we need really, I mean, to get coaches at the international level, as you know, it was mentioned, we need to start at the grassroots. So we need to work with the national federations. So it takes time. And this is why, I mean, we are very positive that now, with all the measures that were taken on our side, but also throughout the federations, you know, we'll see results in a few years. But it will take time because we need to bring a new generation in.
I think, not to get too philosophical on whenever we are Sunday morning, to answer your question, technology, as you pointed out, it brings so many great benefits, but obviously also it brings always more chances to manipulate and to cheat, and that will always be a problem for us. And in a sense, it's a little bit like the issue with doping. You have to constantly be up with the latest technology to be able to fight that, fight any potential problems. So again, we have to keep surveillance going. We have to look at these things, but fundamentally the rules apply that we need a level playing field, and that hasn't changed for 130 years of the Olympic Games and for sport in general. So anything which intervenes in that, providing that level playing field, we have to sort out. So yes, we have to be vigilant. We never know where the next threat is going to come from, but at the same time we also have to celebrate the benefits that new technology can bring us. I hope that wasn't too philosophical on a Sunday morning.
Just a clarification on my side before we take the last question. It was 86% of French people considering the ceremony as a success, not 96%. Is there another question? Okay, Rachel.
Bonjour, merci. Rachel Pretty, l'équipe. I've got a question.
Good morning, l'équipe.
This morning, Thomas Joly criticized the realization of the opening ceremony. Have you got something to say? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood. He criticized?
Thomas Joly said the realization was not top on sequences or... Do you heard of it? And there was a lot of not a lot, but some criticize of the realization.
I have not seen his comments. I would prefer not to comment on comments that I have not seen. Sorry.
Thank you very much. It's the end of the press conference. Yeah. Have a nice day, everyone.